Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope everybody's doing fantastic. If you haven't been here before, my name is Sabramowicz and I help people craft amazing, engaging scenarios. Thank you so much for joining me. That's right. Right after this, I'm going to go for an awesome long walk with my dog. That's what Sundays are for, epic walks. Now, today, what I really wanted to do is share with you a personal story, because I've been talking to a couple of people lately, and this is a recurring theme, and I just wanted to address it. So, what happened a couple of no, that's actually no, it was over a decade ago. I worked with this person, and I don't know if you've ever worked with a person like this, but they're the kind of person who, regardless of what your ideas are, regardless of how good they are, they always shoot your ideas down, or they tell you that whatever you're going to try is not going to work. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever worked with a person like that? Well, the people that I've been having discussions with over the past couple of weeks, a lot of the times what they do bring up is that either their boss or their coworker is very resistant to them introducing ideas in the workplace, very resistant to, let's say they say, I want to introduce a scenario, I want to run it in my next project. They basically get shut down, right? Or no, we're not going to do that. That's not what we're doing here. And it's crazy, because I think everybody's gone through that kind of experience. So here I am, a brand new instructional designer, right? And I'm working with this team, and our leader, who wasn't necessarily my boss, but was like the senior leader. I got a couple of these great instructional design books, and we got a new software program. And so I showed her one of the things in the books, and she said to me, yeah, that's good, but we don't do that kind of stuff around here. Okay, so just forget about it, go back to your work and do what you're told, right? Basically. And to be honest with you, because I was at that point still inexperienced, and I didn't have any kind of real portfolio pieces behind my belt to say, hey, you know what, I've already done this, and this is possible, and I can do that kind of stuff. Whatever you believe is actually wrong, because there are people doing these kinds of engaging scenarios all over the place. I didn't have the guts to do that at that point. I didn't have the guts to stand up to that person. And it was consistent. It wasn't just to me. This person was like just a menace everywhere. And what's funny is that after I left that place, I got a message incidentally on Facebook, and that person sent me a message apologizing for how terrible they had been. And that one of the things that happened is that she was going through some very tough personal stuff, and if I would forgive her for being such a terrible person while we worked together. Now, here's what that taught me, that lesson. One, that everybody only cares about themselves. So this is actually a really good thing, believe it or not, because one of the things that happens is when we encounter somebody who's difficult at work or difficult in a workplace, we really think it's about us. Like we did something wrong, we're not performing the right way, we're doing things and they're reacting, right? It's actually not true at all. Most people are so they're so distracted by whatever's going on in their minds and their homes and all those other things, that you happen to be experiencing the brunt of their emotional turmoil that's going on. So one of the things you have to realize is that wherever you are, if you're in a difficult situation like that, remember that you yourself are already awesome, and that other person is simply working through something that has nothing to do with you, and whatever their bad attitude is manifesting, do not take it personally. I got that message a year after I had been basically through some serious emotional hell with this human, and none of it was related to me. It was all about something horrible going on in her own life, right? So you got to distance yourself. So do that. Now, the other thing that does is it also at that point makes you question, listen, if I'm listening to this person and I think that they're right, how does that affect the work that I do? How does that affect the effort I put into things? How does that affect the way I see the world? Because it does affect the way you see the world. So I have a little visual for you. So here's the first one. So let's say I believe that in my workplace, because I believe this person, that this kind of stuff is too hard to do, or this kind of stuff is not the things that we do. It's only, especially if I bring up things like scenarios, you look at something like that Michael Allen would put together, or something like Broken Coworker or Haji Kamal, and you think, I can't do that. So if you believe that, those are your thoughts are going to be, I'm not the kind of person who can deliver on those things. I'm not the kind of person who can design those things. I'm not smart enough, right? And so what that's going to do is it's going to affect how much action you take to get your to get that project moving forward, or the kind of people you're going to talk to. That's going to affect everything, and that's going to affect your result. So if your actions are limited because you believe now that you've told yourself and everybody around you is confirming it, that you're not skilled enough, you're not good enough, your results are going to show that. And then you know what's going to happen? Those results are going to fuel your belief, saying, see, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. We don't have the right technology. We don't have enough people. My SMEs are not so good. My boss is against me, all those things, right? So you have to be very careful that whoever's around you doesn't affect this. And you have to decide what this is, what you actually believe. Because what happens is, if you believe the right thing, it will actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy and actually make you take more action because you believe you can. Then you'll actually start seeing things through a different lens a little bit, and maybe you'll see a little bit more, and maybe you'll see opportunities. So let's say if you believe that what you believe can be done, and then you can start having thoughts about, I know I can do this. Let me think about what I can do in this moment, even with all these people against me, let's say, what I can do to take action to move forward on this. Maybe I can talk to Jim in this other department, right? Maybe I can talk to, because they're maybe interested in something, and maybe I can collaborate with people who are on my side. So what happens is, when you have this belief, and thanks, Margaret, thanks for pointing that out. And I will answer your question. What happens is you start looking for allies because you have the right attitude. You start having to do that. That might not be very many people, but you have to start looking for the allies. And when you have the positive action and the positive results, it really makes a difference. So when you, what happens is then your results are influenced, right? Your results are influenced by the amount of action you take. And if you take crazy action up here and you're like, nothing's going to get in my way, I'm going to, you're not like that. You're not plowing through people. You're actually going, I'm really going to take some good actions. I'm going to look for good opportunities. Your results are going to change. They might not be crazy at first, but they might be better. And then, boop, your beliefs are like, hey, I can do this. This can work. So, and Margaret asked a really great question. She said, it does affect me. It does affect you. Yes, you're 100%, because the idea was rejected. And so you really have to get a little bit of a thick skin, and it takes time to build that up. But I think knowing that working with people is always going to include conflict, right? That's why most people avoid it. Most people avoid group work or collaboration because it's more difficult. But greater things can come out if a team works together. So one of the things you always have to approach things with is, if somebody's acting a certain way that is not good, you have to think, something's going on with that person that has nothing to do with me. And until they're ready to be, a good person, an adult, I'm going to maybe distance myself from them. And you're right. I didn't approach that person again because obviously they were not empathetic or conscientious enough, because you want to work with really highly conscientious people who are aware of the fact that their attitude impacts the team, right? So definitely you want to make a distance between that person before you make any other connections. So the other thing though is, I just really wanted to point this out, is that sometimes what happens, hi Anton, thanks for joining. Sometimes what happens when we have a difficult people around us, especially if they're resistant to change or resistant to new ideas, there's a couple of things that can happen that can affect this. So wherever you go, my friend, right? Wherever you go, and a lot of people that I talk to, they say, oh, I'm just going to switch jobs and then I'll just find a place that's open to change. That's not going to happen, my friend. If you can't deal with change where you're at, it's like that's your thing that you have to work through. You have to take that and make it work right here. Because if this is a difficult situation for you right now, that's great. It's an opportunity for you to get better at dealing with resistance. Because guess what? It is everywhere. I've never been to a place where they're like, yeah, give us all your ideas. We are so open. Whatever you come up with, we are going to do it. It's not going to happen. So what you really want to do is, like I said, take the resistance to change as a constant in our universe, because people are afraid of change. We are too. We just happen to be the ones coming up with ideas. So be happy that it is there. It gives you an opportunity to practice persuasion. Also, what you really should be trying to do is realize that people are afraid and resistant to change because they don't know what they're getting into. So a lot of times we suggest ideas that to us seem very simple and great to do and very logical. But to somebody who's not in that world, it looks like a giant convoluted project with a bunch of words that they still don't understand. And they're very afraid of having to do way more work than they signed up for. So that might also be a concern. So I suggest be careful. You're stepping back. You're stepping into territory where people don't understand even the language that you're using. So if you say, let's bring in scenario design and create this, and you show them some examples, they'll be like, whoa, I have no idea how to even get that started. Guess what I'm going to do? Protect myself and say no, because that's easy, right? So what you need to do is figure out why the resistance is there, see what their goals are, because guess what? Most times you can actually help people achieve their goals. You just have to use different language to get there. And then the other thing you have to think about is that all of that resistance has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. Their emotional state, whatever they're dealing with, could have nothing to do with work, but they're just using you as a sounding board to say no because they're scared. And then the other thing you have to think about is, are you using other people as an excuse not to be awesome? So you could say, oh, my boss is hard. My boss is hard on me. He's not giving me the right feedback, or they won't buy me the software that I want. That's an excuse. You can still be awesome without that. Could you rock out on weekends and build something awesome and have a portfolio piece to demo? Yes, you could. Could you, if your boss isn't agreeable to the idea, could you talk to a different department and say, hey, you know what? I have this idea and I see you have this problem. Do you mind if I just talk to you about that and see if we can collaborate? Like, the minute you open up your eyes to the fact that some belief is holding you back, and so somebody's telling you what to believe, maybe you just sweep that away for a day and say, what can I do? What's in my power to actually make this happen? Because I believe in it. I want it. So you can take massive action and actually get a little bit of results and momentum. And then you can come back with something, build up your confidence a little bit, and come back to your boss and say, hey, you know what? We've been collaborating on this. And I know it sounds like it's a little wacky, but if I can show you how this can help, I really want your input. I want you to tell me where you see any issues or problems. The minute you start approaching that person as a collaborator and you're the advisor, you're not like the person pushing on ideas onto that other person. It becomes easier for them to potentially open up and maybe be more interested in how you're going to solve their problem, right? Because I told you, everybody just cares about themselves and their problems. So what you're going in there with is, how can I help you do whatever you want to do better? So if you have any other questions about, and will this be easy? No. Will you constantly, expect resistance? Should you expect resistance? Yes. Are new ideas going to be shut down? Yes. That's okay. Just keep on trying. That's why we're here. If we didn't, then, a bunch of stuff would be non-existent, right? Because you remember Edison asked, like, he He asked, even after he had the light bulb going, he still had to go to like 1,000 people and get like 9,999 no's to get that thing built, mass produced. But if he didn't, we wouldn't have light bulbs today, right? Your idea is great. So keep it going. So this is one of the things we also talk about in the scenario design bootcamp that I'm doing, which is when you're designing your own scenarios, a lot of times these are new things to a company and it's hard to sell them, right? So we talk about those approaches, aligning things with business problems, because that's what our bosses care about, solving business problems and making them look good. So if you can do that, why not, right? If you have any questions about that, visit scenariodesignsecrets.com and you can learn more about my process and where I've used it, why it's awesome, and how you can basically schedule a strategy session with me so we can talk about where your gaps are and where you struggle, and maybe it's something I can help with. All right, so I hope you have a fabulous rest of your Sunday fun day, and I will talk to you the next time I'm here, which is probably tomorrow. All right, take care, friend. Bye. Thanks for stopping by.